Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens presented by Jotnick's Paranormal. I am Jamie Widener, your host for the evening, along with Chad Thomas. That guy? That
Over
guy.
here. Yep.
Yeah, he's over there.
Some side, I don't know.
You're on the upside. How's that? Better than being on the downside.
This is true. Yep.
So, maybe when we get to the slide deck, you'll be on the ups and or the down. I don't know.
No, I'm going to be on the downside then.
If it's wrong, someone will tell us.
I'm sure they will.
So, oh well. Hey, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing okay. Better than my dad's house, which we talked about last week. They haven't had power for a couple of days. Well, it's come on and off.
Okay.
But Adams County is not doing real well right now with power.
It's like Texas in a ice storm.
Uh-huh.
No, that's
well,
too soon. Sorry.
Things are warm in Adams County. They've had two substation fires, and
I saw one of those today on Channel 8 WJL, our NBC affiliate here, and it did not look good at all. Like, well, obviously it's bad when it happens, no matter what, but it was like just an inferno. So,
but I did get over to see him on Saturday, and we talked about the show last week a little bit. He actually watched it while I was there, which just a little nerve wracking for me because. But anyway, he enjoyed it. He thought we did pretty well, and I didn't mislead anybody on anything. So,
all right,
there we go. That's all that counts. So
that's a Ken Thomas seal of approval right there.
So, what about you, Jamie? What's your week been like?
Busy stuff going on. I can't even tell you. It's like I have like the attention span of a gnat right about now. We're getting ready to go to Crescent this weekend, which we'll talk about more. But there's been a lot of that getting ready and then trying to get the house stuff done that needs done. Like it's just the churn of life doesn't pause because other stuff is happening, and just trying to make it all fit. We have the youngest is now an employed person, so getting the job back and forth to work and all that stuff is still a non-driver.
Yeah.
But we got to fix that soon. We got to fix that. But, that's been really exciting and, trying to get around that schedule as well. So it's been a little bit of something.
Yep. And I'm getting ready for my vacation. I mean, my camp week, which is not a vacation.
You said vacation. So now it is. It's in my head now. I
I
wasn't wrong all this time.
I've been ordering so much food. It's unbelievable. So.
Sure. How many campers are there?
For the week that I'm doing, I think it's like 40 campers roughly. Right. But on top of that, you've got more staff than you do campers in our situation because they have special needs, so you got to have a lot of staff.
Sure. So. One-on-one attention, I get that, and there's others too, like other volunteers that are there besides staff. And I mean, it's a small group of mini army kind of thing. I get it.
I feed about 120 people a day. So
three times a day?
4 times a day because we have a staff snack at night.
Okay.
Which is it's pretty much the only meal that they get to focus on eating because they don't have to watch a camper at the time. So
I got you.
Anyway, that's
fantastic. Yeah. I was just thinking to myself as I was making dinner tonight, I missed the days, a long time ago when I worked in a restaurant and I ran the kitchen like one night a week. It was just short order stuff, 4-top burner, substation, sandwich station, whatnot. Fryer, 2 fryers. I just kind of missed that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, but then also I realized that you leave exhausted, and you just don't know what happened because it all went by so fast. And you hope your prep people did their job, but all the stuff that you need is ready to go because you're going to run out of everything all at once. And if you've got to go slice, salami, you're done. You're toasted at the point. So
yeah.
My quick aside, my claim to fame was one night when the Chameleon Club was still open in Lancaster, we got an order for 100 cheesesteaks to be delivered at a very specific time after a show was over. Okay. And with a 4-top, and limited capacity, luckily I had enough rolls ready to go. We had the schedule was right on and we nailed this. And my driver came back from the delivery of it. And he's like, "You should have seen it. It was like this big party going on. Like they were like rock stars." And I forget it was a national band that was there. And it was like, well, it's because they are, dude.
Uh,
He was awestruck, and he's like, yeah, it was really cool. Like, did you hang out? No, I had to go. Like, then why'd you take an hour? I got orders to go.
yeah.
The
So,
fun, there is fun in this process, and I hope you get time to enjoy that part of it. And
hmm
the stress is worth it. I know that for you, and
oh
all.
yeah.
So kudos to well for the work you're putting in.
So, but anyway,
Yeah, well, speaking of putting in work, right?
let's talk about something else in Adams County.
Yeah. Anyway, right. So while we were in the neighborhood of Chad's childhood home last week over in Littlestown and Metro Littlestown for that matter, um, right? Because that's a mile out to Metro, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, we're going to focus a little further up the road, and we're going to talk about Gettysburg, PA. Um, I I'll say something first, just to give logistics. But where are we in the world? So South Central Pennsylvania still. We are somewhere between Emmitsburg, Maryland, Harrisburg, PA, York, PA, and Chambersburg, kind of in the hub of all of that. Um, Farmland, rural area, just that kind of quiet place
Mm-hmm.
where life just went, and it just
Mm-hmm.
happened. Things went, nothing ever changed. Well, until one day.
Right.
So, but first, a bit of history. Gettysburg itself was founded in 1786. I'm sorry, by a gentleman named Samuel Geddes, who, of course, named it after himself. It was Gettysburg, and he is credited being the founder because he established a tavern in the area. And the tavern was at a crossroads between, as I mentioned, York to the east, Chambersburg to the west, Emmitsburg, Maryland to the south, and Harrisburg, PA up to the north.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a confluence of roads and passageways that, he was a smart guy to put a tavern there because any direction you were coming in, you needed food, you needed shelter. There was still somewhat of a wildness to Western PA, even though it's the late 1700s. So there weren't McDonald's and Hardee's and all the fun that we have now.
Right.
There certainly wasn't a Sheetz anywhere, or a Wawa. Depends what side you want to go on. Uh, and there weren't Holiday Inns and other
Right.
establishments. So the tavern was that. Um, Again, life was pretty low key until we come to July 1st in 1762. And anybody who went to school, whether it be elementary or high school, anywhere in the South Central, Northern Maryland, Northeast Maryland area, very likely had a field trip to Gettysburg somewhere during their academic career. I know mine. It was in fifth grade. I remember that day vividly, and for a different reason than you may expect. So it was an argument about sodas. One of my classmates forgot to bring a drink with their packed lunch or their brown bag lunch we were all supposed to bring, and our teacher offered to share something I had never heard of before, which was a Fresca.
Okay.
Right now, common now, but back in 1970 something, um, it was new then, and for all the stupid things and it stick to you in your life, that is one thing that I have never forgotten. The first time I saw a Fresca. So
Okay.
go figure. But it was in Gettysburg. So hey, um, today buses and vans full of students still explore Devil's Den and Cemetery Hill, Big and Little Round Top, and we all remember Pickett's Charge and Lincoln's Gettysburg Address as the highlights of Gettysburg. But
Mm-hmm.
what happened there is a really, really profoundly serious thing. And what strikes me the most, and happens over those 3 days, is that 157,000 troops from both sides started the conflict, and 23,049 Union troops and 28,063 Confederate troops did not see the end of the battle.
Yeah.
Add in the wounded and the missing men, the losses there are just absolutely staggering. It's
Mm-hmm.
another 30,000 people, 40,000 people. So,
If I
just
remember my history correctly, that is one of the biggest losses of a, a battle in history. Definitely the Civil War, but I'm not sure.
well, actually, Chad,
Okay.
fun fact that's not so fun. Um, in the top 12 significant losses in battles in the Civil War, it has three of the spots. but none of them are number one.
Okay.
So um, it's one of those things where we don't always think about the scale of battlefields and
Mm-hmm.
how far and wide they are. Many of the battles in the South toward the end of the war were worse
Okay.
than this, but this one is highlighted for a couple reasons. One is that with the penetration of the Southern Army, the Confederate Army, into Pennsylvania, it marked actually the second time that they had come north.
Right.
Um, and with this, should we have not been, we being the Union and the Northerners, I say that we because I'm in the North.
Right.
My family's all from Virginia, so go figure. Um, but if they were not prepared and positioned correctly, then a whole lot of other things could have happened, and perhaps history would be different today. We
Right.
don't know. We'll never know, and that's okay. Um, but we're here to talk about the paranormal, right?
Right.
So when there are losses such as these and this volume of loss, one would expect there to be paranormal activity.
Right.
Fair?
Just want to throw out there. Bert wants to know how many Americans died there.
Yes, Bert. Well, let's see, 112, something like that. Try to do that math. Here's the math: 23,049 for Union and 28,063 for Confederates, all of which are Americans. You're absolutely correct.
Right.
I feel like that was a trick question. I really do. I get it. So, with all of this, and the paranormal that you would associate with these things, Gettysburg certainly does not disappoint. So,
Right.
let's get into it.
Okay.
So, there are several key locations in and around Gettysburg itself. The battlefield is not the town or the borough, of course, and it's stretched across a large swath of territory encompassing many things. So, such as Little Round Top, the Peach Orchard, the Wheat Field, and the Triangular Field are the bigger places, the well-known places, but also, you know, battling through farmsteads, fighting across other territory, but across all of it. And there's a lot of commonality here we'll talk about. But the reports of seeing ghostly soldiers and horsemen, some still marching or moving in formation around the fields, are most common. Claims to hear drums, fifes, cannon and rifle fire, as well as shouts and cries of fallen and wounded, are also prevalent. And it doesn't seem to matter where you go, and obviously I think too, some of that has to do with sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals who are more apt or open to experiences are probably going to get more there.
Correct.
But also strange lights, orbs are captured in still photography. No pledge needed on your outside.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of just consistency across all areas of the battlefield. And what really makes it interesting too is that the battlefield is a park. It's a national park now. So it's not something where it's recommended that we, as normal paranormal investigators, would go out at night. You know, Obviously we do that because there's less noise and light pollution.
Mm-hmm.
Things are calmer, but also because of that, the park's technically closed. So if you are found, you're generally asked to leave by the rangers. So
And well, knowing some rangers, you will be arrested.
you could be arrested. Yeah, exactly. And they take it seriously.
Yeah.
So as they should. So we are trespassing, and we talk about this, with urban exploring and such. You really you take your own risks when you go to places you shouldn't be.
Right.
First of all, but two, you always have the risk of being prosecuted,
Mm-hmm.
incarcerated. So don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it. Ask. It's a permission forgiveness moment. Get permission first.
Yep.
The forgiveness doesn't always come. In the town itself, getting into Gettysburg proper, there's one house that is, and a lot of these are houses. Tell me that was you. Please tell me that was you.
That was Maggie. Sorry.
Maggie found a squeaky toy. Great. One home, and a lot of things happen in houses, of course, because that's what was prevalent in the borough, as it is now, but in town it was then. The one that I think we all know about is the Jenny Wade house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Given that around 2,000 people lived in and around Gettysburg during the battle, it's a miracle that there was only one civilian casualty. Her name was Jenny Wade. During the battle, Jenny was struck by a stray bullet that inside her kitchen of her home, and apparently it came through a doorway or through a wooden door, and just she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the proof of her presence are that things are being moved in the home. There are disembodied voices and the sound of a mournful moaning throughout the house.
Mm-hmm.
And if we haven't posted this here yet, I'm going to stick this in here.
Yep.
From Erica. Got my first EVP ever at Jenny Wade House, and I'm not surprised. So that's very cool. The next is the Gettysburg College. And back then it was the Pennsylvania College.
Mm-hmm.
And then apparently some other bigger school took that name and, go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure. But in the Gladfelder Hall of the college, there are reports of a lady in white who was believed to have committed suicide after her love was killed in the conflict. This apparition has also been seen on the battlefield and at times in the streets of Gettysburg.
Okay.
Other claims are of both Union and Confederate soldiers patrolling the cupola and of a Confederate soldier being seen in the tower, and sometimes he's gesturing wildly to those passing by below. But since there's no sound, they don't know what he's trying to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
This one's kind of like, wow. And I'm gonna read this to you, Chad, specifically, and I'll read it to everybody, obviously. But Chad, I'd like to give me your first blush reaction once done. There's a claim that two administrators were leaving one evening, and when the elevator doors opened, they were faced with the scene of a Civil War hospital operating room, complete with wounded and dying soldiers. What makes this claim even more intense is that while there was full activity happening, there was not a sound to be heard. When the doors closed and reopened, as it automatically does, the associates only saw the inside of the elevator as normal. Needless to say, they took the stairs after that experience. What would you do if that happened to you?
I don't know. I had mentioned to you earlier that I had a story to share, and that's the story.
Oh, okay.
I have a very much more in depth, but version, but that's okay. The only thing I wanted to say is the doors stayed open for a very long amount of time.
Okay.
And when they were, and it was one of those like surreal amounts of times. But basically, when they were punching the buttons trying to get the door to close, there was a medical orderly who was looking at them and realized that they didn't fit, and he sort of was reaching out his arms to them, and then the door shut when he was reaching to go to them. He was looking like crying almost for help. And the story continues a little bit more. They actually went to the security office, got the security guard, and they all went downstairs, and the doors opened up to the dark, dank basement.
Wow.
What would I do? I don't know what I would do. I would stand there in awe, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like, that story goes or circulates through Gettysburg. My mom worked at Gettysburg College.
Sure.
So I had heard that multiple times, and
I have before too. And
it's an amazing story. And the time slip like that is, I want to be part of it someday.
Sure. It makes you just want to stand there and press the button all day, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the investigator, right? You want to understand it, you experience it, you want to have that moment, not like in a person, like in like a greedy way, I
Right.
want to have that. I would like to understand what they experience so that I can communicate it or express it too.
Right.
And I have no reason to disbelieve this, and it's been around. This claim has been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly has legs. It's lasted, and maybe some of it's now become folklore, perhaps, as
Right.
all things do eventually. But it is quite trippy.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, and we can discuss more of this later. But let's move along.
Mm-hmm.
Another area, not necessarily in town, but it is on the edge, is called Iverson's Pit.
Okay.
And this is near the site of the former Forney farmhouse. There was a mass grave where an entire brigade of North Carolina soldiers were buried. And a brigade is somewhere between 2 to 4,000 troops. In the Civil War time, it's 3 to 5,000 now, technically.
Okay.
I had to look that up. I didn't know. So now I do.
Yep.
Lifelong learner. Um, Even though the bodies were exhumed and relocated, there were reports of orbs, hovering lights, mists forming, and shadowy figures wandering through the nearby fields. And this is not too far from Route 30 as well. So,
Right.
um, so people are seeing this as they're driving by as well, as much as active in the area. Another big kind of place or big well-known place is Sachs Bridge. Sachs Bridge is a covered bridge, and it is one of the most consistently active locations in all of Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
Claims are that 3 Confederate deserters were captured and hung on the bridge as a warning to others. Paranormal claims include phantom cigar smoke, the sounds of cannon fire, and the sensation of being touched or even tapped on the shoulder when no one is there. And if you've ever been touched in an investigation, the first thing you do is turn around, to see who's messing with you.
Right.
Because that's not outside of the possibility of a paranormal investigator to mess with someone else.
No, never happens.
Never. Wouldn't do it myself. uh, when you do and there's no one there, it's a surreal moment.
Yep.
What's interesting too is the bridge was, I think it was 96. There, back in 1996, there was a flood, and the bridge was knocked off its mooring, and had to be moved and repaired and everything, and nothing changed. The activity there is still current to this day, so
Mm-hmm.
it's rather interesting. Another place where, if you go, you know exactly what I'm going to say is Devil's Den.
Mm-hmm.
What is now an elevated outcropping of big boulders was a Confederate sniper's nest during the battle, and the Union attempt to overtake it became one of the fiercest and most vicious spots of the entire battle. Reports are that spectral soldiers are seen amongst the rocks at all hours of the day and night. One soldier has been seen regularly. He has unkempt hair, is shoeless, is wearing ragged clothing, and has a floppy brimmed hat. Another common sighting is a cavalry soldier who appears on his horse and then just simply disappears. When it's calm, the telltale sounds of a battle are often heard echoing off the boulders as well. This is the other thing I remember of that day, other than the fresca,
Mm-hmm.
was getting to climb through the rocks and around them.
Mm-hmm.
And I could certainly see, and as an adult now, knowing what snipers are,
Right.
getting it in 5th grade, why this would have been a great location for someone to set up at. So, and how hard it would have been to
Right.
to get them out. So, uh, interesting. So here's one I know you know: the Children's Orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
This is in town. This location was originally a private home, and like many others, was converted into a makeshift hospital for wounded soldiers. After the battle, the home was converted into the National Soldiers Orphanage Homestead to home children who lost their parents during the war. All appeared well until a headmistress named Rosa Carmichael took over. In her time there, it is rumored that children were beaten and tortured, including being chained in a secret dungeon she created in the cellar. Claims at the orphanage are of orbs and disembodied cries, possibly of the innocent victims seeking help. I know you've been there.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I have not.
Mm-hmm. I've been in the basement, been in the
Mhm.
crawl space where, yeah, it's
Heavy.
very, very heavy, very interesting place.
Okay.
We got a bunch of EVPs down there. I was with Sean Austin and Chris, our friend Chris Mendez,
Yep.
and had got a lot of interesting things. Really nice people who run the facilities there as well. So
Good. A fairly new location too, as well. Not one that's been available for a long time.
I'm not sure. It's been there for a long time. I didn't. It's one of those. It's been there for a long time. It's been haunted for a long time, but I didn't know
Right.
about it until the last couple of years.
Yeah, that's kind of what I guess I want to say is like seemingly, obviously it's been there. It's been there forever.
Yeah,
But with access to it,
yeah,
to me it's seemingly newer. And there's that's maybe just awareness more than it is anything,
Right.
and sometimes intentionality.
Yep. Erica
Erica,
said,
oh, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Erica had an encounter at the orphanage as well. In the pit, something pulled me down when I tried to leave.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because Erica's 4'2", and I'm kidding. She's very short. Maybe thought she was a child. Trying to keep
Um,
her. So I'm going to pay for that later. I'm sorry, buddy. But
uh,
that is like, I guess every investigator's fear. Like you're going to
mhm.
have an encounter like that where you're physically assaulted. That is, it's a game changer.
Uh-huh.
And that's a reason a lot of people don't come back to places. Thankfully, got a laugh, a smiley face there. Thank you. Um, but what would you do
Right.
if that happens to you? You make a choice at that point. Hopefully, well, first of all, hopefully you make it out safe and sound.
Hmm.
Obviously the place. But you have to make that choice. Do I want to go back there or not? And because there's now a question that's unanswered: is why did that happen?
Right.
So interesting, very interesting. Thanks for sharing. The next location, also on the outside of town, is called the Grove. And this is not far from the base of Cemetery Hill, is a wooded lot where one of the fiercest skirmishes occurred between Union soldiers from Ohio and the Louisiana Tigers, a unit primarily made of prison inmates from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Losses were so significant on both sides that the dead were buried in mass graves where they fell all around the area. Given the situation, this was common practice, and all was well until 1963, when a road was paved through the area, unearthing the remains of numerous soldiers.
Mhm.
Since then, the Grove has become one of the most active paranormal areas in all of Gettysburg. Reports of strange mists, orbs, and disembodied voices are common, as are sightings of a ghost of a young girl. While no one knows who she is, it is believed she may be the victim of a post battle stress, perhaps due to the loss of a loved one in the battle, causing her to take her own life in the Grove.
Okay.
Certainly, more to come, because not everyone just walks out of the, like we say this at Booby's Brewery all the time. We'd love for Alois Booby, the patriarch of the family, to walk out of the wall and introduce himself to us, but
He never does.
yet to happen. Yet to
To
happen.
us, yeah.
To us, yeah, right. So, but so much of what we do is fact finding first,
Mhm.
research, but then also you just kind of have to do call and response, and try to figure it out, and have trust, that the responses you're getting are legitimately from the person they claim to be.
Mhm.
And that's the hardship, I think, for all investigators, is that just that solid knowledge. um, it's a tough spot. So um, it's interesting, and it's something worth pursuing, to go. Chad, this one might be my favorite. This next
Okay.
one, the Cashtown Inn. So, built in 1797, the story goes that the inn got its name when former owner Peter Mark only accepted cash as payment for food, drinks, and lodging, making the establishment a cash town and the area around it.
Right.
Before the battle, the inn was commandeered by Confederate officers and used as a headquarters while the Confederate Army set up camp all around the area. Paranormal claims at the inn include, that's a long list.
Mm.
Pictures at the bar show orbs and odd skeletal figures seen in it and around the property. Lights turning on and off on their own. Sounds like your dad's house.
Yep.
Footsteps in the hallways when no one is there. Knocking on doors, but no one is there when the door is opened. Mattresses being shook while guests are sleeping. People being touched. And perhaps the oddest thing is when some guests leave and return to their room later, their luggage is neatly packed and sitting on the bed.
Is that a hint?
It might be. One of the stories there is that a guest came back and found this, and they first of all thought it to be rude that it would have happened, and went to the desk and to the management and said, what are you guys doing in our room, like,
Hmm.
you know calling them out basically. And
Right.
it turns out, like, we have no idea what you're talking about. So
Right.
and then occurrences otherwise after.
Yep.
I
Um,
found. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, Bert says Cashtown Inn is on their bucket list.
Me too. Yeah, it's
So,
not that far away. So
you know,
yeah,
no, that's one we definitely need to do a road trip to and get a group together and rent the whole inn for the night and
yep.
investigate. So,
Take it over. I
yeah.
agree.
I know there's definitely been a lot of investigations there that have
Yes.
come up with stuff. I think can't remember if there's a well in the basement or there's some sort of water in the basement um, that obviously helps. So,
Sure. Why I wouldn't be surprised. And we know that
right,
has that, other locations we've been to that
right.
has a whole host of opportunity.
So, I mean, Erica's willing to make a long road trip for this one.
Yeah, that's good.
She's
Hey,
willing to
that
come back up for that.
long road trip, 2 hour flight, either way, all's good. I'll pick you up at the airport. What I found really interesting about the cash town is that, all of these things happen year round, all of that
Mhm.
and more, I'm sure, like these are the big claims, the obvious things. But it's reported that these activities peak around July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd every year, which of course are the anniversary of the battle, those
Right.
dates. So, that's the heightenedness of activity, when energy, when there's energy, there's passion, there's energy and
Mhm.
opportunity. So, here we go, right around those dates, which, Chad, is next week. So,
Yep. So I have a question on that one too for you, Jamie.
mhm.
Is it the energy from the experience that was, or is it the energy that the people bring to the town for the reenactments? And because
Yeah.
you've got all these people, I mean, I'm not sure if people know this or not, but Gettysburg has huge reenactments
Yes.
every year, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. People are into this. Like
Yeah.
they are dressed to the nines in the uniforms and like, so they're bringing their own energy to this. Is that feeding stuff?
Man, that's a great question.
I mean, I'm not asking for an answer, but it's just
Oh, you are, though.
I am.
You're asking for an opinion anyway.
Yeah.
Um, that's a great question. I think it's both. I would expect it to be somewhat of both.
Yeah.
Activity. The reenactors have a passion for what they do.
Oh yeah.
The commitment they've made, the realism of their packs, their gear, their uniforms. That wherever they're from in the world to come there for that time. And it's
Mhm.
not just here; it's a lot. There's so many other battlefields where there's reenactments. On
Mhm.
anniversaries. So it's not just a one-off for them for the year. I'm sure.
No.
Um, but this one's convenient because it's in the summer. Vacation season, if you will. You can go.
Yeah.
Um, and people therefore come to Gettysburg just to see the reenactments as well. So there's a lot of energy happening,
Mhm.
and I think that's got to be a part of it. I can't argue that.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. My junior year in high school over the summer between my junior and senior year, I worked in a tourist trap in Gettysburg. Um, and I worked July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Obviously, it was busy days,
Sure.
but the energy was palpable. Like it was like the energy in the town from the people there, from the spirit. Like you could feel it, and you know, and it was so interesting to talk to these reenactors because they don't go out of character
Yeah.
at all. Like, well, they do, but a lot of times they stay in character, and it's interesting.
Sure. Well, they're on. And that's the point of it is that
Mhm.
they're on while they're there, and I'm sure there's some camaraderie. Once everybody kind of everything dies down and goes, everybody goes back to their respective places for the night. There's
Right.
probably a little let loose time, but if you're visible, then you're in character. Uh,
Hmm.
it's kind of like Disney, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so or
But
the
a lot.
cruise ship. What happens under the deck of the cruise ship under, you don't know, you don't want to know.
Yeah.
Um,
But a lot of times though they're camping there. They're
yep.
living that,
They're living on the ground, right?
and they're
Exactly.
eating the hardtack and the
They're in that moment.
yeah. So
Well, that's the point. It's to try to make it be as realistic as possible, and therefore you have to do what was done. And
uh-huh.
the fact that you can still find some of this stuff is amazing too. But
So
you know they I think that the reenactors and the crowd part of it is a big thing, but also just the sheer energy of those days. It's enough to hold that energy is just being held, and um, it's fascinating though. That's a really good question. And
Mhm.
I'm stumbling for an answer here. I guess we're through an opinion, but I do really believe it's both.
Right.
It would be, obviously we never know the answers. I don't think we'll ever will, but um, it would be interesting to see if the reenactments stop at some point,
Right.
if there's still that peak of activity around the anniversary dates. Maybe that's the only way to tell.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Yep. Sorry,
No,
I keep
no,
sidetracking.
no problem. Yeah, that's cool. The next place is called the Hoffman Mansion. The house there was part of a 123-acre dairy farm and was commandeered. I keep using the word commandeered, and I can't tell you how many times I spelled it wrong because it's got a lot of E's in it and R's in it, and I put way too many of both. Um, but it was commandeered to be a field hospital for Union troops during and after Pickett's charge. The paranormal claims include orbs, disembodied voices, doors opening and closing on their own, people report being touched, and most interesting, a black shape is often reported in the dark corners of the home, and when seen is considered an omen of bad luck. I couldn't find an exact reason on why it would be an omen of bad luck, but I
Right.
guess if you see a dark shadow moving around, it's probably not good anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Most people
you
would
know,
consider that.
generally considered bad. That one is, to me, that one is interesting because of all of these. There are reports of apparitions. Soldiers and cavalrymen. Foot soldiers, cavalry, whatnot. The things you would expect. This is the only one that I found that's truly amorphous. It doesn't have a shape or a form of a person. It's just a mass.
Hmm.
And I think that's very, very interesting. Okay. The next. This is called the George House, aka the Reynolds Death House. George was a Gettysburg local and son of perhaps the most original parents ever. George. Come
Uh-huh.
on, you could do better. I wonder if his middle name was George. And this is how you get a haunting, right there, making fun of the guy. So
Yeah. Exactly.
sorry, George. All right. Again, with many private residences, his home was open to support and care for wounded and dying soldiers. One of these soldiers was Union Major General John F. Reynolds, who was mortally wounded on the first day of the battle.
Mhm.
General Reynolds was brought to the house, where legend has it his blood seeped into the floorboards, causing stains that are said to reappear occasionally. It is believed that General Reynolds, his fiancee Catherine Hewitt, a teenage boy, and another mischievous but unidentified spirit are still in the house today. The blood stain, though, is one where it was cleaned,
Mhm.
obviously afterwards, and then it occasionally appears, likely around activity of his presence.
Right.
So fascinating. There are a lot of other residential situations. I'll go through a couple of those. The next is the Hummelball House. Confederate Brigadier General William Barksdale was mortally wounded leading the charge on Seminary Ridge and brought to the house. As he slowly died, Barksdale kept asking for water up until he passed. Claims are that on quiet nights, the general can still be heard calling for water. And the story goes that he was in a situation where he could only be given a spoonful. He couldn't actually take a drink from a cup because of his wounds. So
Okay.
I can only imagine how that felt. The next is the George Weichert House. This
Mhm.
small residential home has a series of unexplained occurrences, including a second floor door that would not stay closed even when nailed shut, and the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth in the attic, even though it was unoccupied. Might this be the spirit of a Union or Confederate soldier still on duty, patrolling?
Maybe. Yep.
So there are probably 100 more, right? So, but in the context of time and such, I'm going to pause here and suggest that if you go, and again, as we always say, we encourage you to, I'm pretty sure there's a tour of Gettysburg for everyone.
Hmm.
They include the Gettysburg Dead of Night Ghost Tour, the Haunted Pub Crawl. I'm sure some spirits will turn up there.
Uh-huh.
See, I did that.
I like it.
The historic Jenny Wade Birthplace Ghost Tour, the Secrets of Gettysburg Tour, the historic Welty House Ghost Tour, Wonder Women of Gettysburg Tour,
Mhm.
Gettysburg Historic Downtown Food Tour, the Gettysburg Brew Tour, and in the holiday season, a Civil War Christmas. And I'm sure our friend Jim Bernardo would like to attend that. Information on these opportunities and others can be found at gettysburgghost.com/all tours.
Mhm.
And Chad, I know I've done this, but for those who love a good Paracon, mark your calendars for this year's Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, which is happening July 25th, 26th, and 27th at the Eisenhower Hotel in Gettysburg. This event always has great speakers, opportunities to meet paranormal celebrities, wonderful vendors, and is a great place to meet fellow paranormal enthusiasts.
Mhm.
Tickets are available. So, to put a bow on this as best I can, given the sheer volume of losses, of which many did not receive a proper burial, it would be hard for me to believe that Gettysburg isn't one of the most paranormally active places in the country. And Chad, it's only an hour away.
I know.
So, we got to go.
Right.
Um, Let me cite some sources and we'll discuss.
Okay.
AmericanBattlefieldTrust.org, History.net, GettysburgBattlefieldTours.com, and GettysburgGhosts.com. So I said a lot, right?
You did.
We've said a lot.
Mhm.
And Jim chimed in here. So and ho 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 replaces evil spirits with Christmas spirit. I appreciate that, especially if you go back to the house with the dark shadow. Uh,
So,
well, let's go back to that tour for a second. It's interesting to me, that the Battle of Gettysburg occurred in July, right? But there is an attraction for Christmas, and it's not Christmas during a battle or during a war. It's Christmas in the Civil War era.
right.
But that's interesting because that is like a step back.
Mhm.
And not all things in Gettysburg are about the battle, and I think that's proven by the couple tours that are the bars and the foods and so forth.
Right.
Um, plenty of other things to do in and around the area, but the battlefield is so prevalent and so obvious there.
Yeah.
The National Cemetery is there. So there's a lot of fallen soldiers who are buried in the area.
Right. That's
Um,
where Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address.
yes,
Yeah.
correct. So it is the thing that kind of oversees or overshadows everything, but there's so much more to do in the
Mhm.
area itself as well. Um, where I sit right now. I'm an hour and 10 minutes away, hour and 20 minutes away, give or take. Depends how fast I drive, which way I go. But it's relatively easy to get to, and I think that's really how Gettysburg became Gettysburg.
Right.
Again, going back to the opening with the crossroads between, it's a gateway up from the south.
Yep.
It is an easy passage east to west. The reason Gettysburg was even an attraction, there's two things. One is that the infrastructure, what we can call infrastructure for the 1860s, was there because of the crossroads and allowed the armies from both sides to move easily through the
Mhm.
areas. They didn't have to hunk over just non-paved roads or wooded areas, whatnot. It takes a lot of time. It just made it a lot easier to get through, and hence that's where they met. Um,
Right.
I can throw a little claim to fame from the place where I'm from here in Columbia, Pennsylvania. And Chad, you've crossed over the Route 30 bridge,
Mhm.
over the Susquehanna River. You look to the south side of the bridge, you see old pylons that are there. There was once upon a time a covered bridge across the river with those pylons.
Yep.
And back in the probably 2 weeks before the battle, a week before the battle, even there were Confederate scouts moving eastward because the goal really was to get to Philadelphia.
Yep.
And these scouts came to Wrightsville, which is on the western shore of the Susquehanna. They were looking to get through and cross, and the Union soldiers who were on the eastern side or in Columbia set the bridge on fire,
Yep.
which was the only crossing, the only true crossing that was available anywhere along that end of the river, and
Right.
hence they had to go rerouted to go further to the north or to the west. I'm sorry, which took them, instead of coming up through the York area from Baltimore, and instead moving over toward Gettysburg, and then eventually trying to loop up and over to Harrisburg and cross there.
Right.
So um,
Yeah. Everything else would
those
have been
soldiers,
ferry crossing.
yeah, would have been ferries and would have taken a lot longer, because there was the Anderson Ferry was here at the time, the Wrights Ferry was here at the time, certainly. But you're talking a couple small boats. Trying to get an army on a boat doesn't work.
Yep.
You want bridges, you want crossings, that are fordable at least. The river's too wide and too deep for a ford, to walk your horses over it.
Mm-hmm.
So they needed that. And then the time it would have taken to build, vessels to move equipment, and especially cannon heavyweight stuff, was not practical. So the the burning of the bridge here in Columbia, and there's still like the Burning Bridge Antique Center at Mall is here, the Burning Bridge Restaurant, and a fantastic place over in Wrightsville. I recommend it. Right along the river, actually, are prevalent. Still, that heritage is still with us. But that turned things, and we might have a different outcome there too. Should things have been not done the way they were. So it's fascinating. All of these little things led up to the opportunity for both armies to meet in Gettysburg, and we know the outcome. History is written.
Right. It was the turning point of the Civil War.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
So, you did call out the Battlefield Bash,
yes,
as the Paracon. There are actually two other things that happen in Gettysburg. Actually, this year it's the first year for one of them. It's the actual first annual Gettysburg Paracon, August 16th at Gettysburg College.
Oh, cool.
The Battlefield Bash isn't called a Paracon,
yes,
but it is. But this is the official Gettysburg Paracon. There's also the Gettysburg Paranormal Research Symposium, which takes place there this year. It's on August 23rd.
Okay. It's usually shortly after the bash, right?
Yeah. So all three of those are great events. I'm assuming the Paracon is going to be good. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm assuming that that'll be really interesting. So.
Yeah. It's funny, like the bash itself, I've heard mixed reviews, and I'm not knocking it by any means, but good, bad, and ugly. Everything is good. It depends on the person attending, right?
Right.
The one thing I can say is that there is always a lineup of celebrities from the paranormal world there.
Yep.
And there are always a lot of vendors, and there are always, therefore, a lot of enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is what a I'll call it a Paracon. I know it's not, but the bash, is that.
It is a Paracon. I mean,
it is, and I know, but it's not titled that. Therefore, I can't say it that way. But I won't false advertise them by what their brand is. But it is always well attended, and there's always something to take away from it.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately every year over these last several have had something to do that weekend,
right?
And this one I think is the same, actually, because I think we have an investigation that weekend. So we do have an investigation that weekend on the 26th. So at Booby's Brewery. So there's another one. It's like I don't go because I'm working. Like I'm working our stuff. So,
and Batman's always there. So
well, it's also a charitable thing.
It's
there's a couple charities that benefit from the entry fees and a lot of the other. I think there's some raffles and some other drawings and things like that. All of the charities that are sponsored get a good hefty donation out of this weekend, which again I'm all for good causes, right? Yep. If I know that it's got something behind it like that, I'm all in. Coming from the nonprofit world all those years, I'm still I'm a sucker that way. So
we have a lot of good friends who are there. I mean, Steve, that's when I see Steve Dills.
Yeah. Let's see, Steve is on the list this year as well. So, and quite a few others. It's fascinating. Like we don't get to see Steve enough, right? We get him once a year here on an episode, and then physically there, or if we go down to Hanover Tavern, but that's about it. So, it's great to catch up, and that's the connection point. And that's why, we all are in the field together. And whether you're an investigator, an enthusiast, or somewhere in between, or whatever you want to classify yourself, getting out and engaging with other people opens eyes and minds to other things. And places
Right.
you may not have heard of before that might be available to you to investigate, experiences that people have had, equipment that they either have or made themselves. And there's so
Mhm.
many incredibly talented people making equipment.
Right.
It's just that, wow,
Yeah.
and all the vendors, of course, all the things that are there
Right.
too, you can take home with you.
Yep. It's definitely, and even if it's not the Gettysburg or the Bash, or
Yep.
if there's a Paracon close to you and you're interested, go check it out. Like, find
Yeah.
one, go find it, and
Yeah. Like if you're in Crescent this weekend, come see us.
well, yeah,
Did I give away a slide there? I'm sorry.
that's
But well, back to Gettysburg itself.
um,
You know, I I find it fascinating that we're talking about the battle happening, and the residents are there. People are, no one evacuated. There was no call to leave. So this is happening, and it kind of just happens with everyone in their homes, and so many people opened doors for soldiers, and it didn't really matter what side they were on. If you were wounded, if you were hurt, if you
mhm,
were hungry, people found ways to take care of people. And
mhm,
that's the most important thing. And that maybe goes back to Bert's comments about how many Americans were lost. At the end of the day, that's what we all were. And,
right.
people cared for other people regardless of what color uniform they had on that day or those days. And even after, with the going back through all the graves and the
Mhm,
exhuming of bodies and so forth, there was a lot of care taken to make sure people found their way to their final resting place.
mhm,
And again, lots and lots and lots of energy all around the area because of that.
right.
It's not just out in the fields or up on the hills. It is in the homes, and it's in the streets and in the alleys. It's everywhere. It's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
As Bert says, Gettysburg has an energy all its own.
I'd said like 7,000 words for you to say five. Way to go, Brian. Six.
So, but
Thanks, buddy. Well said. Well said.
yeah, Gettysburg. Like you said, the battlefields. There were specific battlefields, but the entire town was involved.
Yeah.
So,
And the fact there was only one civilian casualty is amazing to
mhm,
me.
mhm,
Just sheerly amazing. And that's a lot of to do with the respect of both sides had for civilians as well.
right. Yep.
They were non-combatants. They didn't belong in the battle.
Right.
Therefore, they weren't drug in.
So, well, Jamie, I think you did a good job here, but I think it also has opened some doors to some more specific
Yeah.
episodes on things, because there's things like that you didn't even touch, like the Dobbin House
Yeah.
and places like that, and you could go way into depth on the Jenny Wade House,
Yeah.
the orphanage, um, so many of the other houses. There's the Rainsworth Lodge. There's all sorts of places. So.
And this is what I said last week. Like we're gonna tonight was really meant to be like kind of an overview because again, this could go 2 hours, maybe
Mhm.
three. I mean, who knows, right? Until you get it all figured out. I really wanted to just give us an overview, and we're a week away from an anniversary date.
Right.
Even though it was 1862, and here we are. It's 123 years later. But the anniversary was, just happened to fall around an episode a week that was mine. If next week was my week, which is yours,
Right.
then I would have taken it there and done it then, just as we're right on the dates. But, you know, 123 years ago, a lot of folks were moving in a direction that was going to be the last they moved.
Mhm.
And that's amazing, and truly profound and rather sad, of course. But,
Right.
hopefully what we've learned and what we've done since then have made our world a better place.
Yep. We can only
So
hope.
we can only hope. Right.
So.
Right. Well, let's move on.
All
What do we
right.
get on?
So you want to talk about what's coming up, maybe?
Maybe.
All right. My dog is now going crazy and flipping her bed. So if you hear weird things, that's what's happening.
I keep hearing her collar shake, so I figure she's up to something.
So,
Um,
so upcoming events. Obviously, we just covered Gettysburg. Now I forgot to
hey,
take
yeah,
that off the list. Next week we're doing a season 2 wrap up. So I don't have anything in particular, but we can talk about maybe some of your favorite episodes, Jamie.
sure.
What you liked. Um, we can. I know Bert and Heather gave us their favorite ones. Either this episode or this season or last season.
Sure.
Uh, any of them. If you have an idea out there, check it out.
I
Um,
I jotted some down today,
Okay.
and then I promptly spilled coffee all over my list. So
Sounds like something I would do. Then July 8th, like we said, I'm on vacation. No, I'm not available. We haven't gotten Jamie up to speed on running the show on his own, so
you can't be taught.
that's gonna be our season break, and we're gonna take an off week with no show. Um, July 15th, stand by. We will tell you in a minute what's happening there.
Yep.
But then July 22nd, we're gonna be into our new season with the Mighty Thunderbird. That's you, Jamie, right?
Yep.
And then I'm going to talk about the Annabelle doll. It's been causing some controversy here of late, and so we're gonna dig into that. So, Jamie, you have your sound effects standing by.
I can.
All right, you ready? Ready?
Wait, what are we doing? This is
Drum roll.
unscripted.
Drum roll.
Drum roll. Oh, I got to find that. Here we go.
Jeez. There it is. July 15th, at a special time, we are going to be guests on a show with the paranormal historians. I can't read it because the text is so small. Seekers Chronicles Paranormal Historians. My apologies to that team. But we're going to be on the air with Kim Geyer, Jenny Colucci, and Anthony Simonelli, all great people in this field. Kim Geyer is a gifted medium. She goes into the shows not knowing very much about what's going on. Send her some pictures of the place we're going to talk about, and she does some reads on it. And then we get together and talk about it. Anthony also does sketches. If you haven't checked out their show, watch some of their episodes. But we're going to go on, and we're not going to tell you what we're talking about because we don't want it to get out and Kim to find out stuff ahead of time. But it's going to be a fun night. I can't wait for it. It's going to be from 8 to 10. I know, Jamie, that's going to be a stretch for me.
Wait, yeah, 8:00. Yeah. There's usually stuff going on before we get here that we got to get done. So that's going to be great. No worries.
It'll be but I'm really looking forward to it. And I know they're looking forward to it as well. So
absolutely. Yeah. These are all friends, in the field and anybody who's been around, any like the New Jersey area for sure. And here in the East Coast, you've likely heard of Anthony. He's been around very, very long time. Excellent investigator, just a really good guy. And Jenny's our friend, from back when we started here. So, the cool thing is, with when you get to go do other people's things, you get new experiences. So, like we said about going out and getting into the paracons and the events and so forth, this is for us. It's going to be a good learning curve and wonderful opportunity as well. We're very grateful to be asked to join them.
And I can guarantee that you'll run into Jenny and Anthony at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. So I got to spend time with them last year. It was really a lot of fun. So
super cool.
But before that, this weekend,
speaking of paracons,
we have a paracon that we're going to. Jamie and I will be heading to the Crescent Horror and Paracon. Stop by and see us. We're gonna have a little lounge set up, and we're gonna be playing our show. We're gonna be talking to people. So stop by, get a sticker, maybe get a bottle of water, bottle of sparkling water. We got some stuff that we're going to be handing out. So
and we have a lounge, so you can come and hang out and sit for a while. It's going to be something uniquely different. So we talk ghost stuff, so we all do. So very cool.
Yeah.
And this is a rain or shine event. And we got some notice today that if it is as rainy as it may seem to be, we might actually get moved indoors. So this is really, anything that happens indoors at Crescent, anything can go. So really excited for that opportunity. If it is the way it sounds anyway, it's going to be a lot looking for heavy rain in the daytime and not to dissuade anybody from coming because it is an indoor opportunity then. So, and then you get a secondary ticket. You can investigate in Crescent all night long. So that's really cool too.
Yeah. I think it goes till 4 a.m., which I was like, I can't do that after sitting there all day. So, but anyway, let's see. Then we've got our investigations coming up. July 26th, which is the same weekend as the Bash, like we talked about, is officially sold out.
Yep.
So
Yay.
we're happy to see that. That's great to get people to the brewery. August 16th is starting to sell because, the 26th is sold out. August 16th, we're definitely down some tickets on that.
Yep. It's starting to fill up.
September 27th, we're there. October 11th and October 18th. October 18th, the tickets are actually getting slim for that one as well.
Spooky
So
season,
spooky season, and we got to make room for the brewery to do their thing. So the last couple weekends are busy there, but the first 2 week or the second and third weekend, come see us.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. And then, our places you can find us. You found us here on either Facebook, YouTube, on the Paranormal Lens YouTube, or the Jotniks YouTube. I'm glad we had people checking us out both those places.
Yep.
But we're also on TikTok, Instagram. We have a website, jot-nix paranormal.com. Check that out. Drop us an email, paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. Tell us whether we did good, bad, indifferent, have suggestions, anything like that. We're open to feedback. We'd love to hear from you. It's better to hearing from our fans than the marketing and spam stuff that we get all the time.
Every time I get an email, I'm all excited, like, "Oh, cool!" And then like, "Oh, you want to transcribe for us? Okay, well, cool, but not necessary."
They
For
want
other
they want
things.
us to pay them to transcribe for
Yeah.
us, Jamie. Yeah.
Oh man.
So, but no. And then there's other ways you can reach out to us. You can check those all out at Linktree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And that'll get you to all the places that we're at. There might even be a, a paranormal lens store out there, Jamie.
What the what? Tell me
Yeah.
more.
You could buy some paranormal lens gear.
What?
So check
Oh,
it out.
that's I need some of that stuff.
So,
So
um,
cool.
so Heather just said, enjoyed the episode. We need to get our friends group together to do the Cashtown Inn. I have not, I have not got to do any investigations in Gettysburg. Isn't
Well,
that funny how close Gettysburg is?
it,
And we don't,
yeah,
I grew up 7 miles south of it.
right.
And, we went to Gettysburg for the doctor. We went to the Gettysburg for the hospital. Like, so it was like the orthodontist was in Gettysburg, but like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
that's we all come into this at different times, right? The paranormal
hmm
field, and in different ways, for that matter.
hmm
And just because you grew up, 2 minutes from something, anything, or next door to something, doesn't mean it was in your mind, that was of an interest to you at the time. And you could have moved on and gone across the country by then. I mean, there's, it's always that shoulda, coulda, woulda, wish I woulda
right,
moment. But it's never too late either. So,
right.
I think Heather's point's well made. Let's figure out the when and where and
Get a
how.
group, get a group together, and find out how many rooms are in the inn, and go
Yeah.
there. I've actually been on property there. My sister's wedding rehearsal dinner was there.
Okay.
So, and apparently, I know it's under new management, but the food is supposed to be very good there.
Okay.
So,
Well, you had me
at food,
you had me. Let's do it.
yeah,
So
uh-huh,
food never hurts. I'm highly food motivated. So let's do that too.
all
But
right,
it's just, again, the same thing. The whole package at Gettysburg is, the tours are available that let you do things legitimately instead
hmm
of going out and possibly getting busted, by park rangers in
right,
places you shouldn't be or when you shouldn't be there. Excuse me. So make sure it's something that you're able to do. Keep it on the legit side, and don't take it away from others.
no,
So, um, but go out and get there.
mhm,
There's a lot.
yeah, so.
So I'm glad. Thanks for letting me indulge this one.
Oh yeah, great job, Jamie. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight, watched us live. We really appreciate the feedback, the comments. We had some new people. It was good to see that.
Yep.
Join us again. Subscribe to our YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, all those fun things. But thank you to those who are going to watch us on Spotify and all those outlets down the road.
Yep. Absolutely.
Subscribe to us there. Give us some stars. As Jamie says, 5 is great, but if we don't deserve it, give us what we deserve.
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely, whatever you feel is best.
Yep.
And the feedback's great stuff for us. We're always trying to improve, make things better, give content that you're looking for. So all that stuff helps us just to create a better product and make sure it's what you want to see. So
Yep.
appreciate that.
So just a PSA right now, if you are outside and you're working outside during the day, stay hydrated. It's really hot out there. It's dangerous. Make sure you stay hydrated and all those fun things that we all know but never do correctly. We want you to be here. We don't want you to be a story on the paranormal side. We'd rather have you here following us in real life. So,
yes. Yep. Agreed.
So, anything else, Jamie?
No, just next week's season 2 wrap up. I can't believe we've gotten this far already. Holy cow! And we're still looking. If you're interested, to send us a list of your favorite episodes, just to give us some context to where we are for you this year. That'd be great. If not, that's cool. We're gonna talk about the stuff that we're up to, how we felt about the episodes our favorites for the year, and maybe give a little teaser on what's coming up next season. So more to come.
Yeah.
And thanks so much. Thanks again to everybody for joining us on this journey.
All right. Yep. Thanks you. And as usual, I'm going to say stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night, everybody.
Good night.